Hello, everyone, and inside today's Locked On Canadiens, 32 years of the Craig Rivet trade tree.
You're Locked On Canadiens, your daily podcast on the Montreal Canadiens, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode 1115 of Locked On Canadiens, your daily Montreal Canadiens podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, where you get your team every day. And today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Just download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off your first purchase. Some terms do apply, and we, of course, are available wherever you get your daily podcast, Google, Apple, Spotify, or here on YouTube.com. I am one of your hosts. I am Scott Matlin. As always, I am joined by the active stick, Laura Saba. And Laura, we are down to the final 2 weeks of the farewell tour here, but we have such an incredible show for today, plus a double dose of prospect stuff to start the week. And we're ending it all off with hot ones in 2 weeks. And by we, I mean I. So how are you feeling on what is actually currently a beautiful Sunday outside here in Buffalo?
I'm going to miss you, obviously, Scott, but I know we have a lot of fun stuff planned, including listener favorite Tony Ferrari coming back this week. And this is how much we love Tony. We said that, he had the draft and the period leading up to it. I would say from January to June is his busiest period, and he has to go nonstop with all the draft, with scouting, the reports, the videos. And then he went to the draft and covered it. And then he had to, do a bunch of work. And then he was going to take some downtime. But he found out that Scott was leaving, so he came on before Scott left because he knows how much we love him. And that's how much we love Tony Ferrari. So all your prospect stuff, send us questions before around 6 p.m. on Monday, and we'll pose them to Tony as well. But that's just one of the exciting things we have planned, and I'm very, very excited for Scott's farewell episode. He's got something planned.
It is. I was going to say getting Tony back is great. So if you have Ivan Demidov questions, you want to know more about any of the prospects in the Canadiens pool, Tony is your guy. He's always fantastic. We're going to, get a nice long conversation out of that, a couple of episodes for y'all. But we need to jump into something that was posed in our mailbag, I believe, last week or the week before.
It was the week before, and it was our good friend Charles W. And he was like, that trade tree, the Craig Rivet trade tree, is it now over? How exciting has that been, or how long has that spanned? And so, Scott, take it away while I pull it up.
I've got it. I've got the image pulled up in the background, and this comes from Habs Eyes on the Prize, Andrew Zadornowski, who loves Habs history stuff. To answer his question, the trade tree is currently not over as I understand it, because at the trade deadline this year, there is a conditional third-round pick for 2025 that could become a second-round pick from the New Jersey Devils thanks to the Jake Allen trade. So no matter what, we are going to be going on 33 years worth of content out of the Craig Rivet trade tree. And that all starts in the round 3 of the NHL Draft in 1992 when the Montreal Canadiens selected defenseman Craig Rivet. And he was here for a minute as a perfectly cromulent NHL defenseman. And where things started to divulge immediately is they traded Craig Rivet to the San Jose Sharks for then prospect Josh Gorges and a round 1 2007 draft pick. And I'm going to follow into the Josh Gorges half of this and then into that draft pick part of this. So Josh Gorges stayed here for a minute and then eventually was traded to Buffalo, where they ended up getting a round 2 pick and in 2016 for him from Buffalo because he didn't want to go to Toronto. And the Canadiens also added in a round 2 pick of their own in the trade for Andrew Shaw, which also saw them acquire a there's so many pieces in this. Another round 7 2021 pick in there, which then we follow that path down from Andrew Shaw and his trade. They got a round 3 pick in 2020. I can't say if that's a 2 or 3 just based on the quality of that, but all the way down, it ends up being Vincenz Roars when they got another second-round pick from Anaheim. Following up the other pathway, the 2020 second-round pick became Jan Mysak, and Jan Mysak was traded, became Jacob Perreault. And we also got a round 7 2020 pick, which we used in conjunction to get Jake Allen, which becomes now that conditional second round pick. Coming in from the top rope in all of this is Ilya Kovalchuk, who was here for 22 games, turned into a round 3 pick from the Capitals, which, in his net Washington trade, we ended up using that and the other pick to get Jake Allen, getting a round 7 2022 pick from St. Louis, which was traded for Eric Gustafsson, part of that playoff run there. Not much of anything. Now back to the part that everyone really wants to know about here. That 2007 first round pick became forward Max Pacioretty. And obviously everyone knows that Max Pacioretty was a very, very good forward for the Canadiens. Eventually fell out of favor with Marc Bergevin. And then at 1:00 in the morning, Max Pacioretty was traded to the Vegas Golden Knights for forward Nick Suzuki, forward Thomas Tatar, and a round 2 2019 draft pick, which ended up becoming which in conjunction with the trade with the Kings became a round 3 2019 draft pick and a round 5 2019 draft pick. That round 5 pick became Jacob Laguerriere. That part of the trade tree there is dead, done and over with. There's no expansion on that. That round 3 pick from the Kings became Matthias Norlinder. So there are currently 5 open pieces of this Craig Rivet trade tree still. You have the 2025 conditional pick from New Jersey. You have Jacob Perreault, who plays for the Rockets. You have Vincenz Rohrs, who's playing over in the Swiss League right now. You have Matthias Norlinder, who, despite being a free agent, may or may not be back with the Rocket at this point. Unclear. They would still retain his rights, I believe, right now as an RFA. And then you have the captain.
Most importantly, you have Nick Suzuki.
Yes. 32 years, 3 decades. There's been a lot of presidents. There's been changes. There's been more prime ministers in England than I can count at this point. And I have to say, everyone talks about how the Wayne Gretzky treaty was crazy or the Eric Lindros one and this. This one's still going 32 years. We'll be 33 years on, almost guaranteed. And if the Canadiens make that pick next year, whether it be the second or third round, it's going to continue. This is going to hit at least 33 years worth of content, which is wild for Craig Rivet of all players. It is by far, I think, one of the most underrated trade trees we've ever seen in NHL history.
And that's the thing too, is that I don't really expect Nick Suzuki to get traded for quite some time or to leave, right? I think that Nick Suzuki is going to be a career Montreal Canadien. Obviously, we said things like that about Saku, et cetera, but I don't think that's going anywhere. But Matthias Norlinder for sure is going to yield something, right? And then it's also quite possible that they trade that pick. And then Vincenz Rohrs, we don't really know what the Canadiens' plans are for him yet. He's in the system. He's doing well. He's projected, maybe or maybe not to make the team, but it's quite, it's one of those less likely scenarios, right? And then Jacob Perreault could yield another AHL, right? So I feel like that this thing is still open and could go on for literally another 32 years. And
sorry, I'm just counting how many years he was playing with the Canadiens there. He played over a decade with the Canadiens. He got drafted in 92, coming out of the OHL where he was playing for the Kingston Frontenac. He played there in 93, 94, joined the Fredericton Canadiens at the time in the AHL, and then put together a really long, I'm not going to say illustrious, but he was a pretty regular NHL defenseman for most of his career, because he was then traded to San Jose, where he played just 17 games, yielded a first-round pick for the Canadiens, remember, out of this, and played just and then 17 games that season for the Sharks, 74 next year, and then walked away from the Sharks and joined the Sabres, where he was team captain for the final couple years of his career there. A dude who played a lot of games on not a lot of good teams there, and it blows my mind that you can go, yeah, Craig Rivet, third-round pick, 1992, turned into the current captain of the Montreal Canadiens here, and had a hand in a whole bunch of other major moves, drafting Max Pacioretty, Josh Georges, who effectively ended up replacing Rivet as part of this, defensively tough group there for a long time. You have the Andrew Shaw trade in Marc Bergevin's tenure, where you saw Lars Eller and stuff going elsewhere and bringing in this, and then you have the Ilya Kovalchuk. So many things that if I were to be here in, let's say, 2004, and we're going to tell you, Ilya Kovalchuk and Craig Rivet will be involved in the same trade tree, you would look at me like I have 3 heads right now. It blows my mind just how far this stretches. And like I said, it goes all the way to Nick Suzuki at this point, who's here for a long time. This trade tree isn't going to be cut off for quite a while at this point. And that would be the end of Nick Suzuki's contract or retirement with the Canadiens or whatever it is. You're looking at almost 40 years of content out of this one thing. And we'll revisit this as more things happen, but the Craig Rivet trade tree, more so than the Scott Gomez trade, potentially more than the Dale Weiss for Philip Deneau trade, might actually be one of the most important trades in Canadiens history. Yes, I know the Guy Lafleur, Sam Pollock's work up there and everything is definitely part of that. But in the modern era, I think it's harder to find a more definitive trade piece than this.
I absolutely agree with you. Like, this is like truly part of Canadiens history.
And we have so much more to get to in the show. Sebastian High is back. We're going to talk about the Habs outlook for next season, and we're going to follow up with that on our own. And we'll get to all that coming up next. But first, it is summertime. It is the best time to go see a baseball game. Get yourself a hot dog, get yourself some nachos, get yourself a nice cold beverage, and watch some dingers. And you know what? With Game Time, it takes all the guesswork out of getting tickets to see your favorite teams at any time because you can get all-in pricing, views from your seat, and the lowest price guaranteed. And the best part is, as you get closer to first pitch, tickets get cheaper and cheaper on Game Time, making it so much more affordable and easy for you to go see your favorite stars. Like I said, they have the lowest price guarantee and will credit you 110% of the difference if you find a lower price. And when you see the view from your seat, the price that you see is the price that you are paying. There's no hidden fees and nothing else. So take all the guesswork out of buying MLB tickets with Game Time. Just download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off your first purchase. Some terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest price, guaranteed. We are back here at Locked On Canadiens, and we wanted to give you a little bit of a run-in. Obviously, if you've been watching the show, we've had clips from Sebastian High of Locked On NHL Prospects, and he graciously has donated some more of his time to talk about the upcoming outlook for the Montreal Canadiens season coming up here. And then Laura and I are going to, bounce off of that a little bit with our own thoughts, but we're going to let Sebastian take it away here, and we'll see you on a little bit.
Alrighty, let's look ahead to to next season for the Montreal Canadiens. This is a team that will be looking to take a very big step forward. You're not going to want to see the Habs in the bottom 5 finish yet again next year with the influx of young elite talent in the lineup and building the chemistry, the young players that are already playing in the NHL. The Caulfield, Suzuki, Slafkovsky line will have a full year to continue building that chemistry. They were one of the better lines in the NHL after the trade deadline in the regular season, with Slafkovsky really taking a leap to an almost point-a-game level and a real offensive fulcrum on the power play and at even strength. I'm fascinated to see how those 3 players continue to develop as a unit. I think Lane Hudson could be a full-time NHLer this season as well. Adding him into that fold and potentially quarterbacking that top power play would do wonders in building chemistry, because I think that the long-term top power play unit in Montreal will be consisted of those 4 players and Ivan Demidov. Maybe you see Kirby Dach and Michael Hague pushing to make that top power play unit as well. But if you have those guys on your second power play unit long term, and you have that flexibility of being able to play both units relative even amount, that is beyond a luxury at the NHL level. I also think that Kirby Dach and Alex Newhook could take real steps this season. Obviously, a full healthy season for Kirby Dach would be so important for his development. He was Montreal's best player when healthy for much of the stretch that he's been a Montreal Canadien. And I think that if he's able to stay healthy this year, you're going to have 2 interchangeable top lines potentially. And I think if he's able to stay healthy this season, you're going to have a second line that can create almost as much offense as that first line can, with Kirby Dach and Alex Newhook potentially acquiring one more top six forward between now and the start of the season as well. There's a lot to look forward to. I also think that guys like Joshua Roy and Owen Beck could make the lineup out of training camp and kind of add a new influx of youth. While Owen Beck wouldn't be a power play contributor necessarily, Joshua Roy could be. And there's so much to look forward to in terms of the building of chemistry in this young core at the NHL level, and using the NHL as a development league in a way, and allowing these players to build that chemistry together, build those habits together, build that offensive understanding and creativity together as a unit is really exciting for the Montreal Canadiens' future. I think allowing these players to continue to make mistakes is also going to be very important. The style of hockey the Montreal Canadiens played last season was one of the more entertaining ones of any team that missed out on the playoffs. Every single game was tight and hard fought. It was dynamic on both ends of the ice. You had things to cheer for, whether you're going for either team playing in that game. There were definitely openings defensively. Montreal was not the most compact defensive structure in the league, but the offensive situations that allowed to create was more than worth that pain, and allowing players to explore their creativity, explore their offensive impact under Martin St. Louis in that fluid and modern offensive system was just so exciting. And I cannot wait to see how they build off of that this upcoming season. And to round off this segment, let's look at some of the young studs in that Montreal lineup and their point projections for the season. I'm going to be mainly focusing on the young players in this group, because most of the players on the Montreal Canadiens are very young. So Cole Caulfield and Nick Suzuki are almost falling into the roles of not veterans, but like senior players in this lineup. So I won't be including them, but I did include Kirby Dach because he missed the entirety of last season. I think if he can hit 20 goals and 65 points or that pace over the course of the season, we'll see if he's able to stay healthy or not. Fingers crossed he can. But I think that there's a lot of offensive production to still come out of Kirby Dach this season. Yuri Slafkovsky, I think, could really hit that 30-goal and 70-point mark this year. He's progressed incredibly in the past 6 to 8 months. And with that brand new contract that has him locked up for the next 9 seasons with the Habs, I cannot wait to see what type of leap he takes in his development. I think that if all goes well, this could be one of the premier power forwards in the entire NHL, playing versatile and adaptable top-line minutes for years to come. Lane Hudson, I think, if he plays a full season in the NHL, could be a 40-point guy, maybe a 10-goal type of defenseman. The goal scoring certainly a strength in his overall toolkit as well. Joshua Roy, I would love to see continue to chip away at a middle six role in the NHL. And while there's a lot of bodies in that range for the Habs, whether it be Brendan Gallagher, Josh Anderson, or Yoel Armia, players that are making a lot more money than Joshua Roy is and playing on that right wing as well, I definitely think that Joshua Roy, if given the minutes, given the opportunity, given the second power play chance as well, could be a 15-goal, 35-point guy, which would be a great step in his development. And last but not least, I think Owen Beck cracks the lineup this year. He is so refined. He's such an intelligent and capable player in whatever position he's put in. He's able to elevate any line mates he plays with. And if he ends up being like a third or fourth line center for the Habs this season, I could see him being a 10-goal, 25-point type of player, putting up solid defensive results and just being a very refined and polished rookie by NHL standards. But
obviously, great to hear from Sebastian on that. Laura and I are going to dive into some of his thoughts and what we're thinking about next season coming up next. But first, passion, drive, and patience is the formula for winning championships, is also what keeps your ride or die alive. And at eBay Motors, they have everything you need to maintain your vehicle and level it up to peak performance, from superchargers to roof racks, exhaust kits, LED headlights, and more. Whether you're into speed, power, or style, eBay Motors has you covered. With over 122 million parts for your number one ride or die, you'll always find exactly what you're looking for. And with eBay Guaranteed Fit, your part is guaranteed to fit your ride every time or your money back. Because with eBay Motors, you're burning rubber, you're not burning cash. And with all the parts you need at prices you want, it's easy to make your car the MVP and bring home huge wins. So keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply. eBay Guaranteed Fit available only to United States customers. We are back here at Locked On Canadiens, and to wrap up the show, we wanted to kind of bounce off of what Sebastian talked about in his segment before this with the expectations for the 2024-2025 Montreal Canadiens. And I think, to be quite honest, being in that bottom five is not an option this year for the Canadiens, barring catastrophe around this team on a lot of different levels. And I think that, Laura, you and I have both been in agreement that we don't think this is going to be a playoff team this season, but they're
they
going to be
should
a
at
much
least be challenging for the wild
they're going to be a
card
much
spot.
feistier and more challenging out for a lot of teams this year. And that is kind of where our expectation is at. Like, I'm going to say 10th, 12th is a step forward in the right direction, and then pushing for wild card playoff berth the year after that. If not, if everything comes together this year, I think that they could push for a wild card spot. I don't think they will. Just needing a
I think
few of
they'll
those.
push for it, but I don't think they'll make it, is the difference.
I do think that the big turning point in this is Lane Hudson with more pro experience under his belt and Ivan Demidov coming over and giving them that next catalyst piece in their top six there. As Sebastian said and has talked about in previous segments, he's going to be a huge part of unlocking the full potential of this Canadiens offense,
Which is coming
beyond
next
Nick.
year.
Yes, and
Yeah.
beyond Nick Suzuki and Cole Caulfield and Uri Slavkovsky, guys that we know are going to be good, that if they take that step forward and you add Demidov into that, you're cooking with gas. My biggest question is, and this season, and I think we saw this a little bit last year, it feels like a lot of this season is going to hinge entirely on the health of Kirby Dach. If he is healthy and plays like he did his first year here when he was in the lineup, I think this Canadiens team is going to be a real pain in the ass for a lot of people to deal with. Is that a bad thing that we're hinging it on a player being healthy? But looking at it, it's a top six forward. You would want them to be healthy.
Not only that, like, he's a player that people are still discussing could, like, take Nick Suzuki's place in the top line, right? So he's somebody who brings with him a lot of promise, a lot of potential. But if you look at the concrete history of this player on this team, he made it better by being on it, right? And he was a weapon, right? What does Kirby Dach give them? He gives them a full second line. So, like, if you've got teams that don't have that much depth that put up their toughest competition against Nick Suzuki, then you've got Kirby Dach coming in, right? He gives them another option. It's just basic depth, but at the same time, he's also extremely good at creating the play and driving the play. So, whoever you put with him, obviously, Scott, you talked about Newhook, but he's going to make these people better. He's going to give them weapons that they simply do not have without him in the lineup, right? He's got that ability to create, which, a lot of these players, like, they've done a serviceable job on the second line center spot, but they don't have his ability. They do not have his skill. And that's the big difference, is that if he's healthy and he's able to play, the level of skill on that second line goes up exponentially, not marginally, as we've seen in the past, because God love them all, your Sean Monahans, your Newhooks, your everybody. Kirby Dach is just more skilled than they are. And that's just the way it is. And younger, right? In the case of Sean Monahan, younger and hopefully healthier this season.
And here's the thing with that is, if you look at, that second line with Kirby Dach at center, you have Newhook at wing, which is probably where he's better off. And then you have a Joshua Y. You have a Yoel Armia if he's playing well. I'm not going to say Josh Anderson because I don't believe that that's actually going to be the case. But you have more flexibility in the lineup. You're not square peg into round hole things, that you have Kirby Dach. And then also you have a second power play wave. You are not asking Nick Suzuki to do a minute and a half and then throwing out whoever is out there.
Someone
to
who's
go
not
fix
injured.
that.
They're just like,
Exactly.
not injured guy, go to the power play.
You're taking minutes away from Nick Suzuki so he's not playing 25 a night. He's going to be fresher as the season goes on here. I think that this season, if Kirby Dach is healthy, and I mean, like, everyone will get bumps and bruises. That is just a fact of the matter. These things happen, and I'm not blaming people for that. If he avoids having a freak injury happen to him, I think that this Canadiens team has some really strong looking depth down the middle there. I think Jake Evans did a really good job as a third line center last year, asking to fill in. And then you can sign or promote Guy to be your fourth line center, and that's okay based on the way that Martin St. Louis utilizes them.
Right.
The strength of this team is, as it goes into next year, is going to be, can all the young guys continue to take that step forward? Will Suzuki take another step forward? Probably, yeah. Caulfield, he had a really strong playmaking season, pretty good goal scoring season, didn't hit 30 goals, but, was snake bitten for part of that, but put up points. Slavkovsky was near a point per game on the back half of the season. You have Dach, who didn't play last year. You had Newhook, who had pretty bad injuries through parts of last year. The defense, can Lane Hudson come in and be a power play catalyst? Can Caden Gooley continue his improvement? Can Arbor Jackeye continue his improvement? Can all this? It's not just Kirby Dach, as I'm like talking my way through the question that I posed to both of us is, can all these younger guys continue to push forward? The future of the Canadiens obviously hinges on these, I'm not going to call them magic beans, but all these eggs in this basket here, can they continue to grow and turn into something special? Because Leighton Hudson has the ability to be something special at the NHL level. Caden Gooley has a chance to be a really strong pillar on this defense. Guys like Newhook, guys like Joshua Waugh, and we don't know who's going to come out of AHL camp, out of the preseason, who's going to look like a star. Joshua Waugh's looked great in the previous couple preseasons. Obviously, didn't make the team last year because of space, but still made it anyways part of the way through the season here.
And until the injury, was really doing well at proving what he can bring.
Exactly. And I think this preseason is going to be very fun because there's a lot of names fighting for a lot of spots here. You're going to see a lot of Lane Hudson. You're going to see a lot of Logan Mailloux and Arbor Jackeye and Caden Gooley. You're going to see a lot of Joshua Waugh and Sean Farrell and Riley Kidney, guys fighting for potential NHL jobs against the veterans. Just because you're a vet on this team, I can think of maybe 5 guys who I would say have a safe spot on this forward core roster.
100%.
And that's a good thing. Competition breeds success in the Montreal Canadiens. And
I know it's been thing is, sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt, but like they've shown themselves willing to throw veterans into the AHL. Like they don't care, right? Like, and then Yoel Armia took that as a lesson and came back playing better than ever before, right? So
exactly.
They're not scared.
Like, I know that this has been a quieter offseason than I think many people expected, but at the same time, they're banking on what they have there. They're not trying to just throw pieces away if they don't have to.
Or try to make decisions without knowing what they've truly got, right? Like without having these players play together, without having these young guys get chances on this team. How do you know you need to go out and make a trade and lose assets, right? So I think they're doing like the patient approach is fantastic. And I do also want to really quickly say, I know we're wrapping up, but that no man's land area where you don't make the playoffs and you don't have a top 5 pick, we have to make peace with it this year, everybody, because the trap is not getting there once, because you do have to get there once in your rebuild. The trap is if you get there multiple years in a row, then you get scared that the Canadiens are treading water. But this 1 year where they don't quite have their, let's say prime Lane Hudson or Demidov coming over, this 1 year, if they end up in that no man's land, it is truly not the end of the world. In fact, it should be expected. We should be seeing them fight for a spot, but we shouldn't expect them to get one.
Yeah, and that's the thing is we saw this team on the fence straddling position for years under Mark Bergevin, where it's like, okay, they can kind of squeak into the playoffs or barely miss it, and there's not a needle moving one way or the other. It was delaying the inevitable. They bottomed out, hit rock bottom, and are now starting over again. And Ken Hughes, like, he likes to know what they have. They traded Alexander Romanov. Like, this is the guy that we have. We're going to turn this into something that we need then. And they did that. You have to be willing to make tough decisions on things like that. And I think this is the group for that. I'm excited. There's so much coming up this season that I can't wait to get into. But unfortunately, we're going to have to talk about that in the coming days, and Laura and Ian through the rest of the summer here, because we are wrapping up the show. Please remember, we are having Tony Ferrari from the Hockey News on tomorrow. So send us your mailbag questions at LO_Canadiens, LockedOnCanadiens@gmail.com before 6 p.m. tomorrow. We're recording at 7, but we want to make sure all your questions are in so we can fill all those in there. Remember to follow us on Twitter, LO_Canadiens, LockedOnCanadiens@gmail.com for everything. Follow Laura at The Active Stick. Follow myself at Scott Matla. We are free and available wherever you get your daily podcast, Google, Apple, Spotify, or here on YouTube.com. 2 Fridays from now, not this upcoming Friday, but the Friday after that, will be my last show. It'll be a live stream. We're doing hot ones again because I hate myself. Tune in, ask questions, hang out, reminisce with us for an hour or so. It'll be a good time. But until then, we will see you all next time.